I wanted to share the places that I'd experienced myself with people that I met in the Americas, that I met in Europe when I lived there, when I met in Asia. I wanted to show them what I loved and what where I'd traveled to and the experiences that had changed my life and my perspective.
You're listening to Queer Travel Chat by Two Bad Tourists. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Queer Travel Chat. My name is Austin. As always, David is joining me here in our podcast studio in Madrid.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're listening.
Yeah, speaking of times, we're very jet lagged because we just flew in from Miami yesterday. Yes. So if we're a little bit off, the energy is weird, or our brains aren't working quite the way they should be, we'll blame it on the jet lag.
The jet lag is always worse for me going from the States to Europe than going to Europe to the States. I don't know why, but it's rough. I need another day. But anyway, we're here and we're excited to record another episode. Yes, so let's go for it. Talking about our Caribbean trip, we just hosted 24 guests for 5 days on a Virgin Voyages cruise of the Mexican Riviera, stopping in Cozumel and Bimini in the Bahamas. Plus 7 of my family members also joined the trip. So it was a pseudo work trip and family vacation, although we were both working. So it was fun.
Yeah, it was a great trip. And actually, right before that group cruise, you and I and your family did a 4-night cruise. Yeah. That was just kind of vacation. So that was fun. I think this is our second group cruise in the Caribbean. Mm-hmm. And of course, we have lots of other group cruises later this year.
One of 4, I think, that we're doing, or 5.
I think we have 5, actually.
One of 5. Oh, gosh, we have 4 more coming up. So it's always a fun time on Virgin Voyages. So go to our website if you want to join one of our cruises.
Definitely. Of course, this episode is not about us. We're actually talking about...
It's always about us, first of all.
But we're actually going to be talking about a bit about Africa and Cape Town and WorldPride 2028. So we are actually going to be speaking with Danni Ponter, who is the Director, Senior Travel Expert and co-founder of Sikeleli Travel. So we're going to hear about their various travel itineraries, but specifically their WorldPride packages that they have coming up in 2028.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to Danni about all of it. But before we get into it, and as usual, we'll do some fun facts about our topic. So Sikeleli covers a lot of different destinations. So many countries in Africa, many countries in Asia, and many in Europe. So it's like, what do I do my fun facts on? But since we are going to focus on WorldPride and Cape Town, and we've already done a Cape Town episode, so I didn't want to do Cape Town fun facts. I just thought, let's do the continent of Africa, and there was loads of interesting facts.
All right, let's hear it.
Let's get into it. First of all, over 25% of the world's languages are spoken only in Africa. There are thought to be up to 2,000 languages in use on the continent. Nigeria alone has over 500 living languages. Among the most widely spoken languages in Africa are Arabic, Swahili, English, French, Hausa, Yoruba, and Amharic. I hope I pronounced some of those correctly. And lastly, Equatorial Guinea is the only African country with Spanish as an official language. And I wanted to throw that in there because that's our only other foreign language. I didn't know that either. Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting. Well, speaking more about geography, Africa is the second largest continent in the world, which is right after Asia. So it actually covers about 20% of the Earth's total land area. So just for example, Mexico, China, Eastern and Western Europe, India, the US, and Japan can all fit within Africa's total landmass.
That's insane.
Very comfortably.
That's insane. That's like a nice visual because it's like the US is huge alone.
Right.
And China's huge alone.
Exactly. So yeah, and the largest country in Africa, just for reference, is Algeria, which of course is in the north. And the smallest is the Seychelles, which is an island chain.
Yeah, that makes sense. Africa has 54 countries. South Sudan is the newest, having gained independence in 2011. And Liberia is the oldest republic, having become independent in 1847. And for travelers, as this is a travel podcast, Morocco is often cited as one of the most visited African countries. I didn't want to say that it is the most because that could change it. It depends on metrics. I think Egypt is up there as well. So one of the most. I think it also makes sense because it's like right off of Europe and so many people come to Spain and pop over to Morocco, now that I'm thinking about it. It's just really easy to get to from where people are traveling to already.
Whereas, for example, Cape Town is on the southern tip.
I'm like, I know South Africa is really popular, but when you think about it logistically, people just, it's a farther destination to get to.
Well, speaking a little bit about population, Africa is also the second most populous continent after Asia, of course, and it's got about 1.3 to 1.5 billion people, which is roughly 17% of the world's population. So just to put that into perspective, the greater Cairo area, which of course is the main city in Egypt, has over 22 million residents.
Insane.
So it's generally considered the largest metropolitan area in Africa. And over half of Africans' population is actually under the age of 25, which is very interesting. So it makes it one of the youngest continents demographically.
I could have gotten into so many other fun facts, but I hope that those were interesting. Then you can get into each country, and I mean, it was limitless.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, if you like this show, please subscribe to it on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or wherever you listen. Also, be sure to leave a 5-star review if you enjoy our episodes. Plus, if you're watching live on any social media platform, feel free to leave us a comment or share the episode with your friends. You can always follow us on social media. We are at Two Bad Tourists.
All right, so let's get into the interview. Of course, thank you, Danni from Sikeleli Travel, for sponsoring this episode. So, Danni, we'd love to chat. Come on in and let's have a conversation.
Hey guys, hello. So
Hi,
lovely
Danni.
to
Welcome
be here.
to the podcast.
Welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm honored because this is my first time being on a podcast.
Cool. And we're honored.
So I'm really excited and I feel very honored. And obviously, I've been following you guys and Two Bad Tourists for years, seeing what you've been up to, always checking in, getting inspiration for my own business and for my travelers. And so it's just so lovely to finally be able to engage with you and be here on this platform, sharing ideas and talking about travel to Africa and Asia. So thank you very much for having me.
Likewise, the feeling is mutual. We're very excited as well. Well, first of all, where are we talking to you from right now? Where are you talking to us from?
I'm currently in Victoria Falls, which is in Zimbabwe, and I'm Zimbabwean, third generation. And so this is home for me. And I'm actually flying tomorrow to Botswana and then a few days later to Cape Town, to South Africa. So I actually move between various offices all over Africa that we have. But my primary residence is Victoria Falls and Cape Town. I'm in Victoria Falls at the moment. So yeah, I'm feel very lucky and very privileged to have been born and raised here and be talking to you from this magical little town, which has welcomed many of our guests. It's a wonderful place.
Do you also spend some time in the US? I think I read online.
Plenty of time in the US.
Is there like a particular region that you tend to go to?
Yeah, I mean, I always have a marvelous time in the US because even though I curate all of this amazing travel for my guests, when I go and visit them in the States, the red carpet is rolled out for me and fabulous dinners and amazing clubs and like all the good stuff, So I always feel a great privilege when I go and visit my guests there, and I often stay with them in their homes. They become friends, which is so lovely.
And you get a very local experience.
Exactly.
Yes, and the epicenters of those guests are New York City and surrounds. So everything from Long Island to Connecticut, New Jersey, and then Atlanta, DC, and then California. So the Bay Area, the whole of the Bay Area. Yeah. Wonderful. And those are the kind of places that most of my guests travel from and live. And so I just really enjoy going over to the States, and I push it as much as I can. I'm supposed to be there for 3 weeks, and then it turns into 6 weeks. And then people are like, oh, come skiing, or, let's go to a dude ranch. And I'm like, oh.
Everything. Well, you clearly love travel. Where did it all start? Where did your love of travel begin?
So, David, I think one of the core foundations of why it's such a passion for me and for a lot of my colleagues as well in my little business is I was born on safari. So I was born in Zimbabwe. I think my first safari, I was like 6 weeks old. So I was a tiny baby when we ventured out into the bush. And I think akin to the American or North American story of, people going to like the Hamptons or going out to like Sonoma or, branching out from their little places for the weekend for like a little stay. That's what my parents did for relaxation. They'd spend a weekend going on a little mini safari for 2 days,
my
pitch up a
gosh.
tent.
Incredible.
There was not the glamorous way we do it now, but it was very sort of holistic and rustic and very beautiful and in touch with nature. And because we're generationally used to being in the wild and being on safari, there was never really a question of like, it's not dangerous or anything. It's just what we know, what we're used to. That's our like vacations. So it started there with a love of animals, of wildlife, of nature, of just being in this very, very sort of nature-rich, green, beautiful, bushy, wildlife-filled animal environment. And that grew to being like, I want to share this. So when I moved overseas and finished school, people would say, oh, you're such an anomaly. You're Zimbabwean. That's so unusual. We've always wanted to go on safari. And so I would do, just by default, I would start to plan trips when I was in the corporate world for friends and people I'd met when I lived in Singapore and London and Hong Kong. I would plan these trips for them. And then it just became like second nature. And because I traveled so much of Africa and lived in so much of Asia as well, it just became it just was natural to me. So yeah, this kind of developed as a soul passion of my own to wanting to share different destinations to then planning it and turning it into a business, which is pretty cool.
So was there, Danni, a specific like need that you were trying to fulfill as you were like working with these clients and realizing, or I guess they were friends and colleagues, but then you turned it into a business? Like, what were you hoping to create as you created your business?
So I wanted to share the places that I'd experienced myself with people that I met in the Americas, that I met in Europe when I lived there, when I met in Asia. I wanted to show them what I loved and what where I traveled to and the experiences that had changed my life and my perspective. I wanted to show people the world that I'd been so fortunate and so privileged enough to have experienced and to have traveled. So that's where it kind of stemmed from. And then it just developed into my father saying to me when I left Singapore, I moved from Singapore back to Africa and I was managing safari camps in the middle of nowhere. So, and I'll get back to your question in a second, but it leads into that. So when I was on these safari camps and in the middle of nowhere, having already done all of this, curating of travel for people over my life when I'd lived in different places, I managed these safari lodges, very remote, very luxurious, very beautiful. And my dad said, you need to marry your grassroots experience in Africa at these lodges with the travel and the first world, if you like, experience and business that the corporate world that you've got used to and with those travelers, and marry it because your experience is so great, and create a business, make money, stop doing it for free, make some money, share your passion, but you're expending a lot of your time, and do it because you love it. So it was a marrying of my experience on, growing up with managing safari lodges, Zambia and Zimbabwe, and then the outside world that I'd seen and experienced, and just amalgamating it together for people to have experiences, for me to make some money with my, my knowledge that I'd garnered over all of this time. And then we brought it all together and boom, we've got a successful business with repeat and referral guests only, which is so nice.
Well, and we have to ask the $1 million question. Where did the name come from? And I think and we talked about this before we got on, but I think it's pronounced Sikeleli Travel. Is that correct?
You did it. You nailed it. Right. You nailed it. It's a double-edged sword, this name, because people stumble over it often, but then it kind of imprints in their minds.
Yeah.
Or, there's sort of, it's a strange pronunciation, but Sikeleli actually comes from our national anthem, Zimbabwe. And it's a part of it in the local language. And it goes, Nkosi Sikeleli Africa, which just means bless Africa. So entity, God, whatever your higher power might be, Nkosi is that greater figure. and Sikeleli means bless. And we actually, it wasn't so romantic. We did kind of a consensus. We all had some names. So, my colleagues had some names, my business partner had some names, and we were like, I like this one, I like that one. We put it out to, friends and family, mainly in the States, that we know. And this was the one that everyone landed on. So we were like, cool, okay, great.
I think you nailed it, because it's got a lot of meaning to it. So
it's got a melody,
Yeah, and once I learned to pronounce it the first time, then it rolls off the tongue, actually.
So who's the team behind Sikeleli Travel? And how do you build trusted partnerships in each destination? Because you guys cover a lot of destinations. We can get into that a little bit later, but if you can tell me about, I think it's a family business too?
Sure. It is a family business. So it was started by my sister, my father, and myself. Before my sister got involved, and thank goodness she did, because she's the brains of the operation. But my father, as I said, encouraged me with the knowledge that I'd sort of gathered after living and breathing and working and seeing and experiencing all these countries to start this business. And I was like, hell no, I'm not starting my own business. And of course, when you do a business plan, you see this terrifying graph of what happens if it fails, and that's kind of all I saw. And I was like, this is not very encouraging. I'm not buying into this. It's not great.
I agree.
But anyway, we didn't really have anything to lose. And we had a very good, solid database of friends, families, colleagues, all sorts. And so my dad and I started it, and actually we didn't even need to look at that, because we've gone from strength to strength, thank goodness, even over the dreaded COVID. But anyway, so it was dad and myself and my sister, started as a small team and then grew from there, and we're now 12 in the company, which, it doesn't sound like a lot in terms of a company, but we try to be a lot more sort of quality over quantity. We've hired very specifically to destinations where people know they've lived, they love, they travel to. We spend a ton of money sending my colleagues out all the time, kind of the dream job, right? Like, you need to go and experience this, because we're not going to sell anything that we don't know firsthand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we agree.
Which is really great. And then, I think also pulling in the belief systems that we have and the things that we really believe in, which is conservation, community, and as an ally of the LGBTQ community, that was something that grew very naturally, kind of a nucleus from one set of guests and some very dear friends into an enormous demographic of my business. And I'd like to talk about that later, because people say, well, why is that a demographic? And it's very interesting, because there's something to be said for that, and I'll get into that later. Yeah. But yeah, it's a very interesting topic. But that's how it grew, and so we capture all of those things that are dear to us and make sure that thread runs throughout our business, because it's something that's important to us personally, it's important to us professionally, and we have developed this business that just speaks to conservation, community, inclusive travel, and a strong, small team of very well-traveled travel experts, basically.
So you have a core of 12, but then you must work with a lot of other local guides when you go to all these other destinations, I imagine.
Oh, yeah, right. Absolutely. So I think it's really important, because people are like, why should I use a travel agent? That's a really big question. And that speaks to what you've just said, because I like to be absolutely transparent when it comes to why use a travel agent, why speak to an expert. I've got ChatGPT, I've got Google, I've got someone there who says that they're an expert. But the core foundation of agent expertise is all about being personal, all about having traveled there oneself and made relationships in that destination that you have forever and you forge really meaningfully with reciprocal business, with understanding one's market and one's clientele. So the people that I work with, it's not always been immediate that person has worked or that business has worked with me or for me, because they have to understand how my travelers travel, the very high needs and necessities we have for our guests. And so that person or that business will be a destination expert. They will work with travel agents only. We'll find each other, we'll work together, and they will supply amazing rates, so really good value, excellent knowledge, being on the ground should anything need to be changed, altered, emergencies, so on. They are our...
It always goes wrong. It's travel. You have, that something's going to go wrong. Doesn't have to be something big, but something small at least will happen.
You got to have the safety net. And the safety net, if I'm booking, Cambodia and Vietnam, and I'm on Africa time or I'm in the States, I need to know that I have an extension of my business that works with me only, meaning as a travel agent, and they are there, sort of representing us and making sure that Sikeleli is there with them, and they are looked after and cared for. And if they want something within the hour, they can have it. And so that is how this kind of agent relationship works. And then, of course, it's with those businesses, with those relationships that we have, you can really push for like upgrades and special treatment and like surprise value adds, and like elevate someone's experience by so much just because you have that good relationship. So that's kind of how it works with the other destinations. We have our business partners or the extensions of our business in situ in that country who are absolute experts, as well as that us knowing the country, but them just being there for that support network is so important.
Agreed.
I'd love to get into your WorldPride packages that you have for 2028, which of course will be of specific interest to our audience here on Queer Travel Chat. So for anyone who has heard of WorldPride, or maybe you don't know, so basically this is a global event that happens every 2 years, and I think this 2026 is in Amsterdam, and of course Cape Town here in 2028. So tell us.
Have we ever been to WorldPride?
I don't think we've been to a WorldPride.
We've done EuroPride.
Yeah, we've
done. Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, so 2028.
Well, you guys, we need to remedy that.
We got 2 years advance notice.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about like what you're planning and what you've
what can travelers expect if they're going to join?
Sure. So, we tried to get ahead of the game and put some packages together, because from what I've experienced and my guests who have done many World Prides around the world, the influx of people is so monumental and so great and can be so sudden that a city really needs to have the infrastructure, and a travel agent or a person traveling really needs to have the support of having a trip set, like accommodations done, my transfers are done, the basic infrastructure, even if it's just that. So we wanted to get ahead of the game, and we put together 5 really interesting, different tiered, priced packages specifically for Pride. So they can be pulled apart and changed, but the basis of them, the core of these, is that there are 5 nights in Cape Town, including your Pride tickets, transfers to and from the airport. I'm going to say safe transfers, and I say that not because Cape Town's an unsafe place, but like anywhere, there's kind of cowboy taxis and people pretending to be Ubers, and you just want to make sure that, you've got your name on a plaque.
Yeah.
And someone is waiting there, and you jump off the plane, and we actually have a meet and greet service, VIP, as you get off the plane, and then again on the other side of the airport as you get through arrivals. So you're like, soft landing, particularly if you've never been to Africa or it's new for you, the whole experience is new for you. You're kind of like, I'm here. Someone's got my name. It's great. I'm in Africa. No need to panic, because some people do. And we just want to make sure that everyone is so happy from when they land. And then we've got these 5 nights at various hotels that are kind of pinnacle Cape Town hotels, meaning they're iconic in each of their own ways. So we have Ellerman House, which has got the biggest private art collection, in the whole of Africa. So for people who are in that way inclined, then we've got the Silo, which is a super glitzy, I'm sure you guys have heard of it in Cape Town, very unusual bubble-like, very cool, very trendy, sort of architecturally beyond its time hotel, which is, another sort of style. Then we've got these little boutique hotels that are super cozy and much more like, Dutch Dutch houses, 100 or 200-year-old Dutch houses that have turned into like these beautiful sort of plush little hotels. And then we've got like your little city hotel as well, which is like right on the waterfront by the water. So we've tried to cover a little bit of everything with those 5 nights, but everything is central, everything is iconic in its own way, and everything is easily accessible to Pride and to all of the beautiful little functions that are going to be in and around Pride, and the little events. And so that's the core of the trip. And then after that, we've said you can extend for 3 nights into the winelands. Like forget Napa and Sonoma. Cape Town's winelands, Stellenbosch and Franschhoek will knock your socks off.
We love it.
You were there
one of
a
the best
couple
trips
years
of my
ago.
life.
I was there in 2016.
You
Oh,
see,
amazing.
David, you guys have been,
I love
right?
the city,
Where
but then
did
going
you
to
go?
wine country is
Yeah.
just like, oh my God.
I always
some of the
tell
best
people,
places.
I always tell people that, like, honest to God, Cape Town is, I think, the most beautiful place I've ever been.
Yeah.
Ever.
It has everything.
Hands
City
down.
life, the mountain, the water,
Yeah.
the vineyards.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like just put everything you want right there.
Mhm.
And the scenery's fantastic. The weather's great.
The food,
is incredible.
the nightlife, the
Yeah.
day life, the activities. It's kind of just the perfect iconic
Mhm.
city. And I always say it's a little bit like Vancouver and Sydney mixed together and had a baby. And
Cape Town.
out came
And it was on the
yeah,
African continent.
and San Francisco. Don't forget
True,
San
yeah.
Francisco.
I
Yeah.
see all that.
Yep.
Vancouver's a good one for sure as
Yeah.
well. Well, on
Yeah.
the note of Cape
So you
Town,
mix that all
why
in.
do you think Cape Town is such a good host city for World Pride? I mean, I imagine you know it well.
Yeah. So, oh gosh, that's a really good question. There's a lot of answers to that. And I'll start with, first of all, the size and the ability to take on a lot of people. So we've got a very big stadium down there, which has taken on World Cups, from rugby to football. I mean, we've had everyone from Justin Bieber to Beyonce to like incredibly huge music theater. Elton John has been there. I saw, who did I see? Oh, the Eagles. I mean, it's an enormous stadium. So it's for entertainment, for sport, for everything. So you've got this, with that stadium comes a lot of availability of accommodation, basically. So there's enough places for 100 to 150,000 people to embark in 1 week and come and stay. So that's the first thing. You need people to be able to stay safely. The second thing is the infrastructure around the city is amazing. The roads are phenomenal. And I know that's kind of a weird thing to say, but if you look at a lot of the media of Africa and the portrayals of Africa, people think of like potholes and like shanty towns and so on. And for sure, that is there, but it's the infrastructure of Cape Town, because of the tourist market, is so well supported and so well maintained. It makes a perfect place for people to come in that kind of volume. And then, of course, it is now, last year was named the foodie capital of the world. So not of Africa, as it's been before, but of the world. And that is because we've got organicness, freshness, diversity of taste. I mean, if you look at the history of Cape Town, the last 800 years, you've had the Cape Malay people came from a Malaysian colony. Then there was a Dutch colony. Then there was the British colony. Then, a lot of people have traveled through and, done their whatever they've done in Cape Town, but left legacies of food and wine and culture. And, everything's out in that wash. And that's all been amalgamated into this amazing diversity of cultures and of food. And so with that, it's also incredible value. And so, if you look at Miami, for example, as a destination, or you look at Cape Town, or you look at New York City, especially in these times where there's a lot going on, Pride, Easter weekend, that bank holiday weekend, or the holidays around December, or these kind of pinnacle holidays, you'll find so much more availability and value than you will in these big cities around the world. So it's accommodating in from a value perspective as well. And then just beautiful. You got a mountain behind you. You got bloody winelands over there. You got the sea over here. You go up the coast and you've got flowers, the biggest collection of these particular kind of flowers in the world. You got penguins, you got whales, you've got just, hiking and just everything in this little nuggety kind of beautiful spot. So there's just no shortage of activities, fun, beauty, overwhelm of the senses, whether it's wine and flowers and food and so on, that just will not disappoint. So I'm just surprised that it hasn't been here before. But South Africa's had a rocky road, it's needed to prove itself in many ways. And I think it's doing that more and more. And so it's come into fruition. So I think, just so many reasons.
Yeah, and because it's an LGBT event, I think Cape Town's the only city in Africa that has a rainbow crosswalk, right? Last I checked, I remember us having that on.
It does. It
has like
and
a
it is.
small, do you remember what the LGBT district is called?
It's called, okay, my South African friends don't like me pronouncing this. I'm going to do my best. It's called the Waterkant.
Yeah. I would,
I can see why.
The Waterkant. So I am a Zimbabwean, so I don't really have a South African pronunciation, and they're like,
don't say.
I think it sounds perfect.
Yeah. Well, and
they have there's some gay bars, and there's a small little gay district. So, it is, very LGBT friendly.
Well, and for context, I'm doing this without fact checking, but I'm quite sure it's accurate. So South Africa was the first country on the African continent to legalize same-sex marriage, right? So they're obviously way ahead of most of their, brothers and sisters on the continent.
Mm-hmm. I mean, way ahead. Yeah. Like leagues ahead. And David, to your point, you're absolutely right. The Waterkant Greenpoint area is this it does have the rainbow crossing, which is really beautiful. I've crossed that almost every day because my yoga studio is just like down there, and all of my friends live kind of in and around that area. And it is the epicenter of the gay LGBTQ I think whole space in South Africa actually, and so there's a lot of, like you said, cute bars and a lot of little functions going on and amazing nightclubs and so on and so forth. And it's kind of an ever-evolving area, as Cape Town is, with these kind of interesting cities. But the whole of South Africa, so I'm going from the specific now to the broad. So that's specifically Cape Town. But like you said, South Africa, the whole of South Africa, I believe it was as early as the late 90s, that that the progression of decriminalization and acceptance, and the integration of all sexes and colors and races came together at one time, and it became the Rainbow Nation. That's what Mandela called it. And I think his rainbow idea was more broad than just LGBTQ. It had a lot to do with a lot of politics there, but it's a lovely umbrella to fall under, to be under that rainbow in South Africa. And it's really interesting to see the countries that are following suit. So when we're talking about these Pride packages and we're talking about Cape Town and then maybe the Winelands or Safari or traveling up the coast or whatever, it's now easier for us to go even broader outside of South Africa because Botswana in June of 2019 decriminalized. And so Botswana is also like open kimono, like, let's go, guys. Come on and let's have a visit. And you are welcome here, guys, gals, whoever you are, whatever you are, however you identify, you are here. You are come on safari, be here in this, what is, I think, the crown of the safari, the jewel in the crown of safari is Botswana. So that's open for business as well. Rwanda is another one that is friendly and welcoming and opening, and then you have these little pockets of different countries, which I guess is a conversation you should have about what's safe and what's not safe. And we can get into that because there's two schools of thought there. But these places are opening and they're following suit. And, and the more that people come and show, that they want to travel there and they're like everybody else, I think the more understanding and opening there's going to be, because it's coming. So it's South Africa, it's Botswana, it's Rwanda, and a few others. But South Africa set the precedent. It really did.
I do want to get into the details of where should you travel, where shouldn't you, kind of keeping in mind with the LGBT, community. But before we do that, I just want to ask, if someone is interested in booking a WorldPride package, how can they find out about that? How would they get in contact with you?
Lovely. Well, they can just pop me an email or check out our Instagram. But the best way to do it is just shoot myself or one of my team an email, and we have them all set and ready. We've actually got about 15 different sets of travelers ready to travel, but dates have not been released yet.
Yes.
So I just need to make people aware that there's a little bit of sort of politics going on between Cape Town Pride and WorldPride as to dates and clashing, and are we the same entity? Are we not?
Well, it wouldn't be a gay event if there wasn't a little bit of drama. So
exactly.
Okay.
I want to say, but
sounds like a gay event to me.
Well, then David will make sure.
Well,
to put
yes. I mean, they can go to
website.
sikelelitravel.com to find your contact info,
Yes.
right? And we'll make sure to put that in the show notes.
And then I'll just keep people updated. I'll send the packages. They've been costed for no matter what time of year, because South Africa is quite seasonal. And usually you apply those costs, but we've just got one. It's really user-friendly, each of the packages, and they can be taken apart. You can say, well, I only want to do 3 days, and then we actually want to go to Botswana and then Victoria Falls. Anything can happen. They're just there because they're bite-sized and really easy to get your head around. So just contact me.
I saw that you had them all ready to go, and to give people an idea of what is included and how they can mix and match. Well, let's move on to more about travel in general.
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of get into like thinking about LGBTQ plus travelers. You mentioned a few specific countries, but you also talked about like these little pockets, and like what general advice would you give to our community who is interested in visiting Africa, but obviously they're a little bit nervous, they're unsure, like where do people start?
Yeah. In my experience, and to be completely forthcoming and frank, my job towards and with the community and for the community is first and foremost to keep people safe. I want them to have the experiences of their lives, but my interest is vested in safety first, because Africa is an anomaly. And when we think of Africa, we've got this great big massive continent, which is bigger than any continent. And then within it, you've got all of these countries. And like anywhere in the world, indeed, different states in America or places in Asia, they can border each other and be completely different from one another. I mean, rules, regulations, culture, philosophy, history, everything is different. And so when I'm advising my beloved community guests from the LGBTQ community on travel, obviously the first thing I say is, what do you want from your experience in Africa? What is drawing you to this continent, or Asia, but mainly Africa in this sense is more, the tricky one. Mm-hmm. And what is drawing you? And obviously people tend to have done their research and they say, well, I want to do this and I'd love to, experience Cape Town, South Africa. But then they might say, well, we'd also love to see the gorillas. And, we've heard Uganda is beautiful and Rwanda is beautiful and, these sort of places. And my job is to give the absolute honest advice and rules and regs of that country, and to make sure that that person feels safe in traveling there if it is a non-negotiable and they want to go. Now, I often encounter these two schools of thought. So I'm going to use my friends Aaron and Daryl. My clients who are friends, Aaron and Daryl, they're, I think, on their like 9th trip with me. They live in the Bay Area, and they sometimes bring en masse family, or I curated their honeymoon for them. And then from there, their love of Africa and travel with me developed, and with my business. And they're very they're a mature couple in terms of there are places we want to see, and we're happy to say that we're cousins and we're going to sleep in a twin bed, because we know that this is a backward mentality in terms of rules, regs, culture, and understanding progression and the world. And that's a cultural thing, and we're going to respect that. But thank you for all of the knowledge. And I give them all of the information, the do's and don'ts, and then it's their choice. And they have done all over Africa with me, and been very comfortable with their decision to say, we understand, we'll adhere, and we're going to just be under a pretense happily, because we want to see this place. And, then I have the other school of thought of my guests who say, absolutely not. I don't want to pretend. I am myself. and I want you to try and find somewhere different that will also bring me something fabulous. And so within that, again, I'm keeping people safe. They're being themselves, or making a choice to be themselves. It's not that important to them. Maybe this trip, it might be a once in a lifetime trip. It might be just a bucket list thing. And they might just say, I just want to keep myself safe, and I want to do the big 5, and I want to feel safe and comfortable in my own skin. And that's my preference of travel.
So will you curate a little
that,
bit the destinations or the particular activities with those 2 schools of thought in mind? Okay.
Absolutely. And then when you get into these countries, and I'm not saying that, one can come in and just explore a country that doesn't, that isn't progressive with the laws and LGBTQ rights and the progression in that sense. One can't just come and explore that. But if you speak to an expert, and again, this is where it's so important to speak to a travel agent, there are national parks and places in various countries, from Kenya to Tanzania to Zambia, which has also got a bad rap for the community. But you can go there safely as an LGBTQ couple if you're going to specific national parks and lodges that are at a very high caliber, that have they have certain rules and regulations within their own, that they understand the nuances of the big wide world, that it's much more in their interests to be respectful of their guests, to look after them and make them feel welcome, and work at this prestigious, glamping, beautiful lodge, than it is to, to cause any trouble or think that there's anything wrong with any one couple.
In Ghana, I think we were there for a month, and I don't know if we said cousins or just friends.
I think we said friends. We definitely had a back.
Oh, you guys did Ghana.
We were there for a month, and then we were going to Accra for the weekend. I think we shared a bed once, and I remember we got a strange look, didn't we?
Yeah, and they basically at the hotel said, "Oh no, we can offer you the single beds," and we're like, "Oh, it's fine, we're friends. We've done it before. It's not a big deal."
Yeah,
and they kind of reluctantly gave us the double.
But yeah, we were comfortable doing that too, and to each their own, of course. Whatever you want to do and however you want to live is your decision. It's wonderful that you can accommodate both schools of thought. I think that's great, so that everyone gets to experience these wonderful destinations.
And Dee, you're right. I think to each their own. And as long as I'm doing my job by absolutely making sure that there's no surprises, that people feel safe, that they know the rules and regulations, as archaic as they may be, they are there, and that's how it works. And safety is first, and then your experiences are next. And because of the diversity of a country like Botswana or South Africa, parts of Zimbabwe, that everyone can have that same kind of top-notch safari and not feel like they've missed out. There's so much diversity. So plenty of places for people to travel to.
What do people tend to find difficult about traveling to these particular destinations? And then on the flip side, what do they tend to enjoy most?
Oh, a good question. Okay, the first thing that springs to mind of what people really enjoy is the warmth and hospitality of African people. The absolute joy and surprise that my first timers that are coming to Africa see that people live with very little, just not everybody. I mean, it's a very bustling, progressive continent, but, in places where there are national parks and communities and villages and so on, people are really humble, very welcoming, very warm, and they don't need a lot of material goods to be fulfilled. And that is not saying that, aspirations are there for education and getting better things and living better and so on. But there's a satisfaction and a warmth and a loveliness that comes with being content and just living one's life without, keeping up with the rat race. And people feel that. They come and see people who are fulfilled, gentle, warm, welcoming, kind. And that is one of the biggest things that people are like, wow, people here are really, really lovely. And then, of course, the other, biggest enjoyment is seeing nature in its true form. We don't book commercial parks. We don't book anything that is mass tourism, anything that is oversubscribed by anybody. So when you come on a trip with us, there's an authenticity that is super important to us, because that authenticity feeds into communities and conservation and keeps those true wilderness areas pristine and true, unfenced, unguarded. Obviously there's anti-poaching that goes on behind the scenes because of the rhino horn and ivory and so on, but you never see that. All you see is wildlife moving from one corridor to another, corridor being a wildlife area, or one national park to another. And that's how they've been moving for millennium. And when people see that, they see a rhino in the wild, or an elephant, or they see a lion and their cubs, or a leopard in a tree with a kill, it can be a real life-changing experience. So that is something that is, just unmissable on the trips. So the people, the wildlife experiences, and then I think understanding how similar in many ways, which is a little bit of a contradiction from, the understanding of people, but understanding the similar experiences and struggles that African peoples, especially when you go to the big cities, have come through to get to a progressive place. So, for example, I use my own story. My great-grandfather was a Russian Jewish immigrant who came over from a little village that doesn't exist anymore, somewhere in Poland or something, called Brest-Litovsk. And he got on a boat in Liverpool in 1870 or something, or 1876. And he got on a boat in Liverpool. So he made his way from this village, being persecuted for one thing or another, got to Liverpool, jumped on this boat 6 months to Cape Town, speaking Yiddish and Russian, with a small check of £20 and nothing else. And then that was how my family made their way up into what was Southern Rhodesia, which is now Zimbabwe, and so on and so forth. And that is a story like any other almost immigrant story in America. So when you get to Cape Town, you get to Joburg, you get to Kenya, to Nairobi, you get to these places, you start to learn how there's such an exodus of various people, not just colonialists, but various people from all over the world. And it runs a parallel story to so many of the first world places. And that can be quite moving for people, because it just opens up a whole broader spectrum of what Africa is and what our lives are back at home and how similar it can be. So it's also an interesting angle to learn from about Africa. There's so much more than just villages and wildlife.
Unique and diverse. So I have to agree. I feel like you've touched on this a little bit already. But if anyone is still a little bit nervous about the idea of traveling to Africa or these particular countries that your company has these trips planned around, what would you say to them?
I would say that first of all, they're in for an incredible surprise. I'm finding right now it's interesting for perspective, because I think about my own self, and my next conquest is South America, and I'm quite nervous. I'm a little nervous. I'm like, oh, okay, am I going to get kidnapped in Brazil? Like, what's going to happen to me? And I'm living in Africa. So it's all about perspective. So all I'm trying to say is that I have to have empathy for people who this is a new frontier, and it's wild and woolly, and the media isn't always kind to us as a continent. So I have to first put myself in their shoes, of which I already am because of my big upcoming 7-country LATAM trip. And then talk to them and empathize and give them the knowledge that I have, and also try and share some other stories of previous travelers. And like I said, with the amount of repeat and referral, I have very, very good guests or guests who are now friends, who are so happy to share their stories of their travel. I'll use Aaron and Daryl, for example. They have spoken to people who've been nervous and said, oh, I'm not sure I can do it, and my husband, and we might bring our kids, but we're a bit nervous. And then they have a conversation with these guys, and there they are, ready to go. So it's just sharing knowledge and also being on the same level of understanding. Like, I hear you, I know what you're experiencing, but let me tell you a couple of stories, and let me give you some live testimonials and feedback. And I think that's very powerful.
Having the one-on-one conversations when our guests are a little bit nervous booking with us definitely helps with them. By the way, we didn't ask you, how many specific countries do you plan trips around within Africa, knowing that they're...
it would be basically anywhere in Africa people
Okay.
want to go. We're doing really far afield places like Chad, Gabon, places that people are exploring. South Sudan was, but not anymore. There's just it's about what people want to experience and then what kind of footholds we have there. But we have extensions of our business in pretty much every country that's traversable, travelable, and safe. And then we're making some inroads into some new places. West Africa is one that's coming up for us with all the, all the cultural festivals and so on and so forth. There's a whole festival circuit we're putting together. So there is, and then Morocco and Egypt, we mustn't forget, are part of Africa as well. And that is a huge hit list for us. Morocco is just... so amazing.
We've had a lot of people fly into Spain because it's so close, of course. They do the typical Spanish trip and then pop into Morocco because they want to go to Africa. They want to experience and it's right there. Exactly.
You want to just do 5 days of shopping in Marrakesh, no problem. Or you want to explore deeper. You want to go to sort of these beautiful Bedouin desert lodges and like these old, the thing about Morocco is what I find so interesting. It was such a heady place for creatives, and a lot of there were a lot of gay men, and specifically who could go to Morocco and live and exist away from the persecutions and the rules and regulations of their first world place. So there were a lot of creatives and artists and poets and writers that went to Fez and to Casablanca and so on. So there's still that kind of reminiscence of this arty, heady, decadent, beautiful, rich culture and world that carries over now. And that can also be explored. I mean, it's just amazing.
Morocco's a top one.
You guys love it, right?
Of course. Yeah. Well, many of them.
Yeah.
Well, Danni, as we wrap up this interview, I just wanted to make sure we give you an opportunity to share any last thoughts or anything. Was there a question you wish we would have asked you? Sort of any final thoughts for our listeners?
Or did we cover it all?
I think we've covered it all. I can't believe how quickly it's gone. I'm like, what happened? And I also feel, I'm so sorry. I just feel like I'd be like, me, Sikeleli, me. And there's questions I wanted to ask you guys, but
no, don't worry. Our audience knows all about us. This is about you.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Think about the audience. So no, I think we've covered everything. And I just want to, maybe I can just finish off with saying that, Africa, Asia, the world, things are progressing and opening up and becoming more inclusive and more welcoming. So if you are ever in any doubt, just let us know, have a chat. Let's have a Zoom or a Teams or a Google Meet and get to learn and understand a little bit more of Africa. It should never be a write-off for anybody. There's always something for everybody here. And I just love welcoming people to this continent. And I'd be delighted to welcome any of your guests. And you guys.
You said the WorldPride 2028 dates aren't released, but do we even know the month around? Okay.
Nope.
So let me talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bugger all information. I'm sorry.
Normally,
it's 2028.
When is Cape Town Pride normally? Do you know? April's normally
April. So maybe around there if they.
So it's either going to be March, April, or November.
Okay, depending on.
That's what we're putting it on. Yeah, and that's
so we have something for people to put in their minds.
Yeah, exactly. Or November, and it won't be around any sort of big holiday times, and it won't be in the middle of winter. And I doubt it will be a peak travel season, which in Cape Town is sort of beginning of December through to kind of March, and then it starts to tail off a little bit. So that's what we're estimating and guessing. But I'm going to keep in front of everybody on my emails and, media and so on, and I will update because I've got like guys on tenterhooks going, I've got a group of 6. We're ready to go. We want this hotel. Yeah.
Well, this is a travel podcast. So we always like to wrap up with our final question being, where are you traveling to next?
Oh my gosh. This is an easy year. So I'm going to the Congo in a couple of weeks. I'm doing an expedition there. I'm taking 2 groups, Aaron and Daryl and friends, and a bunch of others. I've got the Congo, Botswana, South Africa, France, the UK, Ethiopia, Kenya. What does that say?
I think it says
one more that I can't read.
It says that you win because I don't think anyone on our podcast has ever had so many answers to that question. And we're now in season 5 episode, I don't know.
Oh my God. It's wild. It's wild. And that's a slow year.
So when you're doing, you
Yeah.
said you're taking 2 groups. I mean, you're not bringing groups of strangers together, are you? I mean, it's their own private. So is it sometimes couples, sometimes a big group of friends or family?
Yeah. So we do everything, multi-gen, everything. I don't often travel with my guests like this. That's very rare and few and far between for me. But I do 2 or 3, as do my colleagues, 2 or 3 big expedition style or big trips per year. And I feel privileged and honored because I put this trip out only to guests that I really, really like, who are friends, who I'm like, I know this will work. We can be together. This group will work. Yeah. So I was like, I'm doing a 7-day trip to the Congo. It's quite intrepid. It's not an easy trip. The accommodations are very nice, but we are kayaking, we are walking through swamps, we are, trees and vines, and it's kind of crazy.
Wow.
And I said, listen, I'm leading it, I'm going, and this is the kind of thing that I love. I love equestrian safaris and these intrepid safaris on foot and mainly. And so I said, I put it out to like 30 of my favorites. I'm not gonna lie, my absolute favorites, and people I know that will gel, that will travel well. And I thought I'd fill 1 group, but it was so well received. I filled 2 groups. And so I'm staying on and doing the whole thing again with the 2nd group. So we do this kind of thing. And I'll often do this and sometimes we'll put it out to market, like Mexico. We do art tours, and I'm taking a group. I took a group to Mexico City for Mexico City Art Week, and my colleague's taking a group this year. And so we'll pull that together. And often it's because of the personality. I'm not blowing smoke anywhere near me, but I know that 90% of those people will never go to the Congo unless I was like, I'm going, you're coming, let's go. So it's a pretty cool. Yeah, it's a pretty cool thing to do. So we do those kind of group tours, but we can also bring groups of friends together and big families and a lot of multi-gen. So granny and granddad coming with mom and dad with the kids. And then we just have like couples traveling together as a group, or we just have solo travelers sometimes. So many, many things. And then we do work a lot with Detour Tours. We do all of the Zimbabwe work for Detour from Canada. We've been working with them for like 7 years now.
We have a podcast with them coming up soon, actually.
You do? They're the best.
Exactly.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Good luck then with your upcoming trip to the Congo and Latin America. It's been so fantastic talking to you, and congratulations on the success.
It's very insightful, like all the destinations and the tips. So that's super helpful. I know our listeners will love that.
Thank you, guys. Austin, David, it has been such a pleasure being on this podcast with you. I really, really appreciate and value your time and the questions. And I'm just looking forward to more collaborations with you guys. And put it when we have a calendar up, Pride 2028.
Yes, we'll get that info out as well. We'll put it in the show notes of this episode.
Okay, good
Thank
stuff.
you.
Thank you so much,
guys. Chat soon.
Have a good one. Bye.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for tuning in again. And thank you, Danni, for taking the time to tell us all about their trips. If you want to learn more, be sure to go to sikelelitravel.com to learn more about WorldPride 2028 in Cape Town. We'll put a link in our show notes as well, so you can easily find that. And if you want to learn more about Cape Town as a destination, we've already done a full podcast episode focused on just Cape Town on season 2, episode 9 of our podcast on Spotify, or is it also on YouTube? Were we doing YouTube in season 2? Maybe it's only audio.
I think it's
only audio.
If you like this show, please subscribe to it on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or wherever you listen. And also, please be sure to leave a 5-star review if you enjoyed listening to our episodes. That helps us a lot, get some visibility. And if you're watching on any social media platform, please feel free to leave us a comment or share the episode with your friends. As always, you can follow us on social media. We are at Too Bad Tourists. And lastly, please feel free to leave us a comment about what you want to hear more of, because we take some of those recommendations and turn them into episodes.
Normally, I like to give you a sneak peek of what's next, but we've got loads of podcasts coming up, and we're still kind of organizing the people that we're going to be recording with. So I'm excited. We're going to be doing like 1 a week over the next couple weeks, right?
Yeah.
So stay tuned. You're going to get plenty more episodes coming your way.
All right. Thanks, everyone.